If you could die more than once and come back every time you died, would you choose to do so once, twice, multiple times? And why would you make that choice? This is another video that is a little bit an Ask a Witch and a little bit a Death Ritual and Magic class. Now I will be getting into the timeline of Death Ritual and Magic very shortly here. I have so many courses going on right now, but I am trying to make sure that we're posting regularly to each of them. But this was a question that was asked in our Discord in a conversation thread. Not in those words. That was my attempt to summarize what I'm going to be answering, but I'll read off the entire question. So in response to this being a portion of the thread in Discord, I went back and rewatched some of the necromancy videos that are up on the Sanctum YouTube channel. In one of them, Akiima mentions crossing the veil sorts of practices and how dying changes you. And I'm curious, how often is that something people from your background, teachers, people you've worked with, etc. do? And if it's something that's done multiple times, why? So let's break this down because there's a couple different portions to this question. First, how often is this something people from your background do? Which background? I'm not trying to be pithy or dismissive. I really struggle to answer this because my teachers were all from so many different backgrounds. I've learned from everyone from an herbalist and midwife who absolutely did not identify as a witch, who would never have called herself that, but from whom I learned the vast majority of my everyday practices. I learned from a person who did call herself a witch, who identified as being a beloved of the adversary and who believed that she had a contract with the adversary. I've learned from a person who would be called a cunning worker or a clever person or a granny witch of the Appalachian Mountains who never would have used any of those terms to describe herself. I've learned from a Russian anarchist who primarily did tea leaf readings. And I spent several years studying ceremonial magic underneath a teacher and also have done various entheogenic psychoactive experiences all over the country and in Mexico from various teachers who taught me those specific journeys and didn't include sort of the larger context of all of their practices. And then there's my martial arts experience, which is deeply fundamental to my spiritual practices and influenced the choices that I make regarding my death ritual and magic. Yeah, heavily influenced my decisions that I make in death ritual and magic. But the question is, how often is this something that they did? And the actual answer is that I've encountered the idea of going through an experience that is like dying from multiple of these teachers across various cultures. How they accomplished it was different. Not all of them made use of plant matter that would induce a state that was like being dead. Many of them, it was more of a meditative journey that you went through. But it was fairly common, overarching across all of these diverse traditions. I have gone through meditative journeys where you cross what is referred to as the arm of death across the abyss to the sea of making and unmaking. And that was a meditative journey, a guided meditation that I've done multiple times, that I've walked students through doing, that was like dying and coming back, but didn't involve the physiological processes that made my body as unto dead. The teacher who I did that with would be called, an Appalachian granny witch, a cunning worker, a clever worker. There's so many terms that get used for what she did. Southern conjure, Southern cunning, Appalachian conjure. None of them are terms she ever would have used for herself. That's not how she talked about it. The experiences that I had with her were geared specifically to help me with a problem I have. I do not believe that it was something that she would feel everyone had to do multiple times. Maybe once, but it was to help me. Which brings me to, why was this necessary? I've talked very openly about the health problems that I have. I've done so for many, many years. I am a ridiculously disabled person. I have a laundry list of medical conditions. It's absurd. I feel as though whatever power that be put me together with like scrap parts. I am a lemon. If there was a return policy, a warranty on a body, or like a lemon body policy, I would return this body if I could. Unfortunately, I can't do that. But one of the problems that came with my disabilities, wow, it just got really, really dark in here. And I'd love to claim that that was like super witchy and intentional, but no, I'm pretty sure that clouds just rolled across the sun and I just lost my lighting. So one moment while I turn on some more lights. Okay, more light accomplished. Where was I? So, as I said, I've tried to be very open about my health problems. I've mentioned before that I was born extremely premature. I'm lucky to be alive. I was born very, very sick and very, very early. And during the time that I was still in the hospital as a premature baby, I died, and they kept resuscitating me. This has been something I've talked about very openly. It is a matter of some debate amongst electrophysiocardiologists that I have treating me as to whether it is the fact that I was born extremely premature or the dying multiple times that my autonomic nervous system doesn't function correctly. I also belong to two different ethnic groups that it is extremely common to have that problem within. It's referred to as dysautonomia, and it is familial in two different ethnicities that I belong to the point that when I was filling out the paperwork to see the electrophysiocardiologist to pursue the diagnosis, it actually asked if I belonged to either of those two ethnicities. And I was like, both? Why is that relevant? What the heck? Anyway, so it could be genetic, and it could be because I kept dying, and it could be because I was born extremely premature, and who knows? It got worse when I became a teenager, which is actually extremely common for dysautonomia, that the symptoms got worse as I hit 11, 12, 13. And I started having these crisis events that would land me in the ER that no one had any idea what was going on. We thought that they were seizures, but I didn't respond to seizure medication. It now turns out that I almost certainly did not have childhood epilepsy, which for years, like decades, that's what I thought I had, because that's what everybody told me I probably had. I had to get a waiver when I went into the military that said that I'd been seizure-free for so many years, because I had been. But on the onset of puberty, I started having these crisis events where I would wind up in the ER. Now I know that those are called autonomic crisis events. But I didn't learn that. It's been in the last 5 years that I've gotten these answers. I'm 39. I spent the vast majority of my adult life having no idea why my body didn't function like anybody else's. And what was wrong with me was such a lifelong mystery. And I cannot tell you how often I have been told that it's the price of my magic, that it's because I do these magical things. I have been told this by hardcore fundamentalist extremist Christians who have told me that it is punishment for my witchcraft. And I have been told it by extremely the opposite end of the spectrum, far into the witchcraft and occultism spectrum, where they've said, oh, well, it's the price of your magic. It happens to you because you can do these things. Very frustrating. Anyway, I digress. During these autonomic crisis events, I flatlined. My autonomic nervous system has just shut down. I now know it is mostly preventative, how to deal with them, and I do what I can to prevent them from happening. I haven't had one in 2 years. I'm very, very relieved that it has been 2 years since the last one, and that the treatments that I am going through seem to be helping. But I would just kind of die. It's not how it is in movies where you flatline and they press paddles to your chest and it brings your heart back. That can't actually happen if you flatline. The paddles don't do anything. There have been emergency injections that I've been given to get my heart beating again. And I have left my body and been gone and suddenly crashed back into it. This occurred from the ages of 0 to 2. It occurred so frequently that I had to sleep with a special heart monitor on that would alert my family if I stopped breathing, if I turned blue, if my heart rate wasn't correct, and they could treat me. And then I was in foster care. But then after that, it happened again in my teenage years and then stopped. And then it started again in my mid-20s during a period of extreme stress, and continued from my mid-20s all the way to recently. I've gotten it to back off and slow down, but it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and more frequent. In addition to that, I would find that I was going on these spiritual journeys with no control. It would happen while I was sleeping. I would be up out of my body and into worlds that I would struggle to describe. I have private students that I talk to about my world journeying. But after a couple of the entheogenic experiences where I did things like go down the river of blood to the place where the ancestors are, or cross the arm of death, I would find myself just doing those things with no guidance, no entheogens, and no assistance from a teacher, a mentor, a guide, and have no idea how to get back to myself. And as valuable as the experiences that I had were and are to me, they were also terrifying, and they were detrimental to my ability to lead a normal life. Now, I just want to clarify here that I have been in mental health services with therapists, counselors, psychologists, and psychiatrists basically my entire life. The people that I work with are fully aware of my religious beliefs, but I use a combination of dialectical behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and other therapy modalities with what I've learned from my magical teachers to keep my beliefs from being detrimental to my everyday life. Because that is the issue with believing the things that I do, is with whether or not it's hurting me and hurting those around me. I have a right to my unique spiritual beliefs, but I also need to be able to lead a functional life and not harm myself and others. So anyway, I digress. It was detrimental to me. And so we got help. We got help from one of my primary teachers to teach me how to die and come back, to choose to reclaim my body. And this is one of the reasons why I went into a little bit of detail about the fact that I resent my body, that it hurts me, that it has so many problems with it. To give you an idea, this is what's going on with me. I have dysautonomia. I have what they believe is hyperadrenergic POTS, which is a form of dysautonomia, on top of having idiopathic, probably genetic dysautonomia. Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I have cervicothoracic scoliosis. It goes from between my shoulder blades up into the base of my neck. It causes me extreme pain, tension headaches, and makes certain physical activities extremely difficult for me. I am still a martial artist and I still am physically active, but it is harder. And no, it was not caught by physical scans while I was in high school, nor was it caught by the military. It was caught by a car accident in my mid-20s, and I got an x-ray because I had a displacement in my spine, and they were like, "Did you know you have moderate scoliosis?" And I was like, "No, I can't. Not possible." But I have fibromyalgia. I have chronic migraines, chronic cluster headaches, chronic tension headaches. I have adenomyosis, and I have suspected endometriosis. Everything hurts all the time, and it always has. I don't know what a pain-free day even feels like. I don't know what it's like to wake up and feel as though you have the energy to meet your day. I just don't, and I never have. I have been white-knuckling it through life, my entire life. And I resent my body. I try not to. It has been a constant battle to appreciate and be content with my body. I'm never going to love it. I understand the argument of like, oh, you need to love your body. I don't. It is a struggle to be passively accepting of my body. And I don't want to come back to it when I'm out there. I don't. The things that I learn, the things that I experience that I can't fit into this brain, that I can't translate to my students, that I cannot explain to anyone because they don't fit in my brain, they certainly don't fit on my tongue. The universe is awesome and terrible. And it would be the honor of my existence just to get to experience more of it. But I have to come back. At the time, I had my great-grandmother to take care of. I was her primary caretaker. I needed to come back. And now I have a partner and a child. I have students who depend on me. I have to come back. If I'm out there because I chose to be, or because I got hurled out there whether I wanted to be or not, I have to come back to my body. And I have to stay. So I was taught how. And that is why I did it so often. I made a pithy response in Sanctum's Discord, which was practice makes perfect. That's how I answered that person's question. But that's really what I meant. I don't think that the average person who is learning this should intentionally go through a physiological process as close to dying as possible, multiple times. If you choose to do it once to be reborn as a specific identity or to leave one life behind and claim a new one, or to be able to have had this experience where you died intentionally and came back, because in some systems of death ritual and magic that is fundamentally important to becoming a practitioner of that, then great. And if your system that you belong to says you need to do it multiple times, then do it multiple times. But I was instructed to do it multiple times so that I could learn to control it and do it intentionally. Practice makes perfect. That's why I did it multiple times. And that's why I would choose to do it again. But now I do not use the plant materials that suppress respiration, that slow the heartbeat, nor do I use very many of the entheogens that enable the experience to be more intense. It's not that I've stopped using entheogens, though I'm not going to tell you when and where for some of those, but particularly for these death meditations, I'm doing them unassisted now. And I'm doing them primarily using psychonautical techniques combined with meditative journeying techniques from other systems. It's my own like mishmashed crucible soup pot of techniques that work for me. Yes, I did get everyone's request for me sharing one of my death meditations. I do intend to do so. It might go up on Patreon just because a guided meditation is kind of weird posting to YouTube, isn't it? I don't know. Okay, so that's how I do it now, and I still keep in practice with this. I go across the arm of death to the sea of making and unmaking. I find the abyss and float in it. I go to the river of blood within me and follow that to the ancestral plane. These are parts of my everyday practice, and I find them extremely valuable, partially because I choose to come back. And that has made me recognize reasons to come back beyond just obligation. Yes, obligation is my primary reason to return to my body. The obligation that I have to my child, to my partner, to my students, and to the community that I serve. Those are the primary reasons I come back. But I also come back because I made a promise to myself that I could learn something new every day. That I could pursue certain experiences in my life, and I check those off. The term bucket list is actually relatively new in American consciousness, but I have one, and I keep adding things to it that I want to experience before I die, and so I use that to keep myself willing to come back. But in terms of the pleasure that I get in everyday life, it is primarily that I get to learn something new every single day, and that brings me back to myself with more contentment with my choice. That and my child and my partner are pretty damn special, so it's nice coming home to them. I've built myself a full life that I want to come back to, even at the price of the pain that I am in all the time. If that is the price that I will pay to continue experiencing the life that I have built for myself, then I'm willing to pay it. But that was hard for a while. Okay. If you have questions for Ask a Witch or for our Death Ritual and Magic series, please leave them in the comments below. I'm going to ask you all a question so that you leave me comments, because we need as many comments as we can get from people. Would you ever choose to die if you knew for sure that you could come back? Would you make that choice or not? And why? Please remember to like and subscribe and share our content with people that you feel would value it. We're trying to broaden our reach so that our crisis preparedness content reaches more people. And be safe out there, everyone.